G'day, folks. AOS Coach here, and we are back talking Helsmiths. And we're talking Helsmiths for a couple of reasons. One, we have some soggy updates, so I'm sure many of you are curious about the thoughts around Soggy or Scourge of Ghyran. Second of all, it's been a couple of months since the battletome's been out. We've started seeing games in action, people taking them to tournaments. We're playing with the full range. And I thought this is a great opportunity to revisit on the eve of Battle Scroll. I'm sure it's coming up anytime soon, to talk a little bit about where are we at? Where are we at as a faction? What is good? What do we like? What are we hoping can improve either this battle scroll, next battle scroll, or heading into the upcoming General's Handbook? And stepping out of the smoke and into the studio, I'm joined by Mitch Hester, who is having some technical issues with his webcam, mostly because I think it's the industrial pollution and the Daemonfire taking up his technology. But Mitch is joining us as not only a very passionate chorf, but also someone who has had a lot of experience and a lot of success and a lot of ideas around Helsmiths. So I've been playing Helsmiths. Mitch has been playing Helsmiths. I thought this would be a great opportunity to revisit. Welcome, g'day, and tell us about yourself, Mitch.
Yeah, hi. So I'm Mitch. I was one of the coaches for Team Australia this year at Worlds. I'm quite active in the tabletop simulator community for Age of Sigmar, which meant when Helsmiths first released, I was able to start testing them out quite early on and start trying things quite early on. I've been a long time Fire Slayers player, so having another dwarf army was very exciting, because the Caradron overlords never quite appealed. And yeah, I've gotten the opportunities to test this army against a lot of very strong players. I've gotten to, I've got a lot of friends who let me test it out with empty bases and stuff before we could get the models and such like that.
And that happened, right? Because we had that range of, we had the very early box set, so you could play with a war machine, a little bit of the troops, some heroes, but we've only just recently had a second wave. So proxying, and it's actually not a bad thing as well. Actually, it was a very easy way of getting to the hobby early on, because do I buy all these cohorts? Do I build them with spears or swords? Well, actually, why not proxy and try to work out what works for you? So it's not such a bad thing. But Mitch, aren't you conflicted as a Fire? I didn't know you were Fire Slayers player prior to this. Are you internally conflicted? How are you feeling as a dwarf player, a Dwarden player? Now you've got 2 from 3.
The narrative conflict between them is obviously very fun, but I don't know. I'm just enjoying having more dwarves.
Will you be excited? And I'm going to say it now, get it out of the way, and then move past this. Are you excited about the possibility of a new other dwarf faction? The rumor mills are talking about Grumdy coming in, whether it's city dwarves and Fire Slayers or whatever. People have been ruminating golems and more war machines from the dwarf side. Is that something you're excited about as a Dwarden player?
I'd say so, yeah. The rumors I've heard tend to frame it as a expansion to the Fire Slayer range, which they've obviously needed for quite a while. So yeah, I'm excited for that.
All right, well, let's put them out of the way. No more talking about Fire Slayer naked babies. We're all about the Chaos Dwarves and what. Let's rewind. Why did you get into this army? And I'll tell you why I got into it. I freaking love this army. But what got you to cross the line from Fire Slayers to Helsmiths?
So they're dwarves, and that's what got me to start it in the first place. That was the hook. But then a lot of the gameplay for this army is very fun. It's very engaging, and that's what got me to properly stick with them and made me decide that I actually quite enjoy playing this army and want to work it out more.
It's a cool army.
It's
Keep
very
sorry.
No, so what this army is very fair is the main thing I have learnt over working it out. They don't have many tricks. There's no teleporting, there's no reanimation. The Army of Renown has a little bit of that. There you don't have get out of jail free cards. But to counter that, you do have very reliable tools, and your units are very cheap, so you get quite a lot of them. So the army plays in a really cool space that this game doesn't really have much of at the moment, where the tools you have are very reliable and very applicable. You're in almost every matchup, you have a way that you can win it. You have something you can do to keep yourself in the game and claw out a victory. But the onus is on you to actually execute that, and if you fail to execute it, you get punished pretty badly. Our damage dealers are very squishy. When our backup units do not do good damage. So you really have to be aware of what you're capable of doing, what your opponent is capable of doing to mess with you, and where you need to put your resources to stop that from happening.
Yeah, it's you've nailed it on the head. It's a really interesting army I'm finding. So because I've been playing it now exclusively in match play. So coming back from Worlds, that was just all in on Helsmiths, obviously a couple of games prior, but what I'm finding is that, and what you just said is true. Like when you look at any of the people who have are looking at some of the data from match play and how people are going, you're seeing an average win rate of around 45 to 47% win rate at the moment. Now there's a couple of things unpacked there. Some people have been running just the exclusive box set, so they haven't had the full range. They haven't had an Oratar. They haven't had any Bulgors. People are still learning to play the army. Every time I go to the table, they're like, "What does this army do? What should I look out for?" And that early game conversation is way longer than it normally is, and that's not a bad thing. But as much as you're trying to work out how to defeat me, I'm also trying to work out how to bloody win. What does my army do up against X and Y? And do I have the reliability? Do I have the damage output? Do I have the speed? And then you overlay battle tactics. How not only do I pilot the army, but then how do I pilot the army to score and do my battle tactics in probably a season that isn't great for us? And I'm sure we'll get into more of that soon. But battle tactics aren't that good for us right now. It's not a favorable season for us, but you're right. The stat lines are pretty reliable. The saves are very generous.
The way I've been summarizing this army is that we play the game normally, and you need to not make any mistakes. And it turns out that playing the game normally and perfectly is very difficult.
It's so true. It's absolutely true because they're not a fast army. You're right. They don't teleport. They don't have a lot of shenanigans. My biggest shenanigan is my hobgoblins who can move in deployment. Outside of that, they are what they are. Yes, you can do bridge and things like that, but it's not like you've got these coming from the side. You don't have a terrain feature to leverage. And there's that whole resource management when it comes to your desolation tokens and your demonic power points that is interesting because it's a bit of resource management. I don't think it's a tax, but there is a little bit of interplay there of like, where do you put them down, and how do you anticipate what might unfold so that you've got your points in the right area?
So I actually, if you don't mind, if I get a bit deeper in how to desolate,
go for it, please.
Yeah. So the desolation mechanic, I think, is like expertly designed. It is a home run in terms of game design. My compliments to the chef. The way that you get the points really encourages you to play the game actively, because you're encouraged to desolate terrain and objectives that are harder to get to early on. You're encouraged to use a you use a Hobgrot pregame move to like tap 3-inch tap a mid-board objective, and then at the top of one, that's the one you desolate first. So stuff like that. And you're encouraged to keep your easy desolation targets in your backline, your home objective and stuff like that, to save them for later so that you can keep your desolation points ticking up even when you're starting to run low on resources or the opponent is in your face. And that dynamic encourages the player to play quite actively, to like move into the midboard, to get into fight ranges. It's not a mechanic that encourages us to castle up and not interact with the opponent or anything. And then
you're right.
And then the actual points themselves are a like really cool like system of just every unit gets buffed in different ways. Every unit has a different number of ideal points that they want. Like cohort work best on 2. Uruk-Tar really wants 3. Bull Centaurs don't need any, but can use up to 3. And then that further goes on to list building, because when you're deciding what units to put into your list, you need to factor in how they all differently interact with the demonic points, because you only have so many, so you can't have too many units that all need 3. You need to have a good mix. Just that mechanic is so well made to encourage like a healthy play style for the army. I like it a lot.
And you're absolutely right, because, and this is where it's really hard to gauge the army. Like when I look at blunderbusses, for example, they're Ren nothing, or they can be up to Ren 3. Now, depending on like where my resources are and how I'm allocating them will determine, I guess, and like what gives me the biggest bang for buck. Like, do I need Ren 3? Can I just handle Ren 1 or Ren 0? As you've said, Bull Gore don't need it, but I actually really like it when you go to teleport them with Soul Screen Bridge, because it gives me a little bit more of a guarantee, or like there's so much interplay. And I've got a lot of questions, by the way, and Discord did provide a lot of questions. And one of them actually almost kind of ties into this, is like, is this an easy army to get into? Like, if I was going to start Helsmiths, like, if I'm a newer player, like, is this a good army for me? And like, you know what I mean? Like, is it like a really complicated army, or is it an easy army? And I would say, and I'm going to say this, and then I'll let you explore. I actually don't think it's a bad army for any player. I don't think it's a bad army.
So okay. If you are a new player, like new to the game in general, and you're looking at armies to pick up, and you think the Helsmiths look cool, they are like, okay, if you do pick up this army, you are going to lose games. But I'm also going to say that you should pick up the army. I think that this is an incredible army for getting better at the game with. I think this is a great army for learning the fundamentals around positioning, screening, knowing what your opponent does, knowing how you stop them and like how you use the tools you have to effectively do that. Target prioritization, as I said, this army plays the game normally. It plays fair. It doesn't have any tricks. And a side effect of that is that anything you learn while playing this army is incredibly transferable to the rest of the game. Like, this is an incredible army for learning the game and just getting better at playing anything. But you, like... So, go into this with the knowledge that, like, while you are learning, you are going to be losing a lot. This army is very punishing of mistakes. You can, like, make minor positioning mistakes, and suddenly all your damage units are dead, and you cannot do anything anymore.
But it's also forgiving as well. Like, you got to remember, this is an army with mostly a base save of 3+. So and the stat line is relatively generous in regards to you've got some pretty consistent damage. So you're right, and you don't have a lot of speed, you don't have a lot of get out tools where for a command point you bring back a unit of half strength and things like that. But actually, like, it's a relatively solid army for a new player or someone who is inexperienced into Age of Sigmar, and then, as you've just said, for a player who's looking to get better or is looking to bring in a different style, I think it also works nicely.
I think we have good saves on most of the units, but we have bad saves on our primary damage units, and we often feel that quite a bit. Like, Bull Centaurs and Blunderbusses are incredibly squishy units, but often we're taking them anyway because of just the absurd amount of damage they deal. And that dynamic is something that can catch a new player off guard. Like, it's very tempting to run your Bull Centaurs into a combat because they're your big fight unit and you want to use them to do the big fight. And they'll go in, they will obliterate the thing you've charged them into, and then some random 10 model unit that hits on 4s and 4s will kill like 1.5 Bull Centaurs out of nowhere.
Well, let me add this story. So I was at a games day last weekend, and game 2 I'm up against mostly so it's a Slaves to Darkness army. Austin, a friend of the channel, Austin's running his primarily Dark Oath, but a little bit of like Ogroids and things like that. So I've charged my 6 Bulgor into I think it was Fell Riders, because he was doing really good layers, and I'm like, right, I'm going to charge into the Felgor, and I'm going to try to do some things. He countercharges with the Ogroids, and 3 Ogroids in one combat in partnership with the Ogroid hero. Not the Thermitage, the other Ogroid idiot, the more combat-y one.
Yeah,
they've gone in and they've deleted the whole unit of 6 Bulgor in one round of combat. So, like, I just want to bring that to life because the Bulgor do a lot of damage, and Blunderbusses do a lot of damage, but they are so fragile that you're right. You've got to protect them. You've got to find your spots, and you've got to not throw away these tools early. But also,
when you do throw your big unit of Bull Centaurs in, oftentimes they're going to die on the backswing. You won't have the tools to protect them. So you need to not only see when the opportunity is to throw them in, but also that it's okay to lose them after the fact because you're going to be crippling your opponent enough.
Well, it's why sometimes I have to throw Auric Tardo with them as well, like just having that save and like that little bit of a protector. But it's an interesting. It's like a kind of like Lumineth, but in a different way. Like it is tricksy. You could move these models forward. Actually, also like they're also a little like Stormcast as well. But yeah, I find it a really fascinating army. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed this faction.
When you play the army well, when you like see the matrix and like get all your positioning correct and like plan ahead a few turns and execute the plan perfectly, it feels amazing. This army is really fun to play.
No, you're right. I had that moment actually. Again, another game last weekend where I played a friend, Chris, and I would go up against Chris's Cities of Sigma, and it has three iron wheel cannons, has a steam tank that can't be wounded unless it's a 4-up. He's got the knights, and I'm like, oh my god, how am I going to handle this? Because I know that he outranges me, he outdamages me, and I can't rely on my castle. And it was fast. And then like this was the first game that I ditched my spears for swords. I'm like, oh god, I wish I had my spears right now because this is perfect anti-cavalry, anti-charge tech. But you're right. Like when you start playing this out and you start to kind of understand the mechanics and what things can and can't do, this is where the army really comes to life. Probably true of most armies. It's just that this isn't as forgiving as some of the other armies.
Yeah. Like our armies with strong get out of jail free cards can often like let you be sloppy because you're tanky enough to take a hit that you didn't expect, or you have the tools to get out of, to like bring your unit out of a bad situation and put them where they're needed. This army has none of those. You need to really be on the ball.
No, it's very true. And actually, this kind of leads nicely into two questions that Jabba had dropped. The first one is an easier one, I think, is how are you prioritization? Are you prioritizing your DPPs or demonic power points early in late game? And you started alluding to the center, and actually, yeah, like tell me more about how you think about your DPPs and ruinating and desolating terrain.
Yeah.
And
So like as I said, like desolating terrain, you want to desolate the difficult things first, so that later in the game when you're running low on resources or your stuff is tied in combat, you still have the easy things banked, so that you can keep the train rolling. As for where you actually put the points, the answer changes depending on if you have Uruk-Tar or not. If you do not have Uruk-Tar, you need to do quite a bit of planning ahead, because you're not just distributing your points based on what you want to do this turn. You're also distributing them based on what your opponent is going to do to you after this turn. And then if they have a double turn potential, then you might also need to have to plan for that. But like, it's not that difficult. It's a very learnable skill. Like if you don't have Uruk-Tar, you're probably a 3-drop list, which means you've likely been given first turn, and on the first turn, you using a command point to give a 20 brick of cohort a 5-up horde, and then putting your 1 demonic power point on like your torment bombard. Like that's a fine way to open the game. You move your ward cohort brick forward, they take up space, you shoot something and switch off their commands, and you just set up the rest of your army so that a double turn doesn't kill you. When you get further into the game, you then need to start thinking about, like, do you need to prioritize damage? Do you need to prioritize durability? Where are your bull centaurs positioned? And do you need to charge with them? How much do you need to charge with them? Because how many points are you willing to put on them to make sure they make that charge?
Yeah, because after the charge, like, yes, you do a couple of extra mortals on the charge, but it's really, you're going for the guaranteed or as close to guarantee as charge as possible, especially if you're throwing them up with bridge. If you're just walking them forward and you can get within 4 or 3, whatever. But when you're outside of 9, you need to hit that charge because I don't want them sitting out there unprotected.
Yeah, and like if they're... But even like if you can run them up 10 inches to outside of 3 of something, and you absolutely need them to charge this turn, because if they don't, you're going to get smacked. Do you need to put 3 power points on them anyway, just in case the opponent redeploys? Because if you lose the game to a redeploy 6, that's a very convincing argument to putting 3 power points on your bull centaurs.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. And this is where the mechanic becomes interesting. And I think a lot of I want your thoughts on this in a second. A lot of players are offense minded. They look at their units as like, how much damage can I deal? Where I believe that when I'm prioritizing my DPPs, it's often in the defense rather than the offense. So you mentioned earlier the cohort. I love having my cohort on a 5-up ward. Like for me, that is like number one priority. Yes, I love having my blunderbusses on a Ren 2 or a Ren 3. Yes, I love having multiple targets on my bombardment to get the 3-up no commands. But in the day, once that juicy center gets cracked, there's often a GG coming with, getting into the center of my Ashen Elder or getting into the blunderbusses, getting into the war machines in a traditional build.
Yeah. And like definitely having... putting the points on the cohorts to delay the opponent getting into your squishy damage dealers is very important. In turns like 2 and 3, if you still have cohort around and it's like a substantial number of them, then putting keeping points on them to keep them in the center pestering your opponent is can be a very strong thing to do. Or maybe there's only like 4 left and they just want to run away from the combat and rally up a few times. And in that case, you put your points elsewhere.
Yeah. Yes, obviously, like game situation, all of those things come to mind. But I'm always a big fan of cohort, as you said, whether it's using the command, especially early game. Like they are so good. Like as much as I want to put all my points into war machines, I put all my points into like Bulgor, the actual core of this army is cohort. And it's why I have 60 of them right now. Not in all my lists, but like I own 60 cohort right now. I've got 40 swords and 20 spears because they're the bone of this army.
Cohort and blunderbusses fill a very important niche in that they are very effective with 2 demonic points, which is exactly the number you get off your command in the early game. So like using the command on turn 1 to just slap a 5-up ward on the cohort is great. Using it later on blunderbusses is also great. This goes back to the demonic point mechanic being so well designed. Our armies are often very mixed arms. We're a uniquely bad army at spamming. Our builds often end up being pretty varied, which is very good for like the health of the army.
Yeah, there's probably like 2 areas you could spam. Obviously you can spam everything. If I want to put all the grots down, like go and stop me. You could, and like at this little event that I was at the other week, someone was running four war machines, 2 rockets, two cannons, which I think is a bit overkill. But in saying that, like you're doing damage early, you could cripple your opponent early, and then. But like, would I put so many points into my army of having like 4 war machines? Probably not.
And also
but you could.
Those artillery pieces are not amazing at using demonic points. They're not bad, but like other units we have use them better. So even if you want to build a list that leans really, really heavily into artillery, you're still pretty encouraged to bring a mix of other stuff to use your DP better.
Yeah. I will say that after playing with the rockets a few times, I feel like 1 is not enough. And I feel like I do want to play around more with having 2 rockets in the army, because when I start pointing that rocket into Manfred, Vordry, like that big monster hero, I want to reduce it as much as possible. I'm averaging probably 5 damage per rocket. So for like, it's fine. But if I really want to reduce the opponent early, I feel like double rocket is the way to go. Now, where do you find those points? Do you drop the cannon? Like when you hit the 3 up, like you love the cannon. When you roll a 1 or a 2, you hate the cannon. And then obviously the Bulgur, right? Like you could go all in on Bulgur. It's definitely a way to build the faction. But you're right. I just want to reinforce that you're right. It's a faction that isn't the best when it's spammable. Like having a mixed arms is actually a good way of playing this faction.
All of our units have like a very defined strengths and very defined weaknesses, and trying to pick any of them to spam is going to exasperate those weaknesses. Like we don't have any units that are perfectly well rounded. So and any unit that you could bring that you want to build a list around is going to encourage you to bring different units.
Yeah,
because they all work together as a team.
Bingo. They work better as a team. One more question I want to bring up from Jabba, and then I want to bring up the Scourge of Ghyran. And I think we're going to vary on this one. This one comes up in Discord a lot, and it is: what are your thoughts on 2-drops and 3-drops? And I'm looking at some of the data out there around Helsmiths, and we are mostly sitting between 2 and 3. 3 is a more popular pick at tournaments right now, but obviously everyone's trying to look for ways to reduce it down to 2. So I guess my question to you is: 2 or 3, pros and cons, where are you sitting? Is 2-drops the only place to be? Like, talk to me more.
Yeah, so this is a big question. So, one of the great things about this army is that a lot of our stuff is quite cheap. For this game, like not many armies get to have 70-point units. Like our damage dealers are like a unit of blunderbusses is 220 points. For a damage dealer, that is quite cheap for this game. You do get what you pay for. We're not undercosted. But blunderbusses are that cheap because they die to a stiff breeze. Same with bull centaurs. But like the upside is that we get to have a lot more units than the standard Age of Sigmar army. The downside of that is 2-drops. When you are, it's decently awkward trying to fit a list into 2-drops. It like restricts what units you're able to take. 2-drop lists like are good, but they can't really bring Hobgrots or the War Despot or any MSU units, or like even cannons. They can sometimes struggle to bring, just because you're trying to use your slots as efficiently as you can on expensive stuff, but our stuff just isn't that expensive. So so the 2-drop lists often end up missing out on a lot of the best things we get to have. But being 2-drops is very good. I'm personally still on a 3-drop list because I like the War Despot and Hobgrots and MSU units and so on. But getting double turned is like an issue for me. The Scroll of Petrification is an incredible artifact that definitely mitigates how bad getting double turned is. If you've positioned correctly, you can absolutely dull your opponent's double turn to the point that you're confident just giving them the double turn after you win that prior roll. But getting that positioning correct is very difficult, and like even more places that you could mess up. So going 2-drops is, and also like sometimes you just don't do it quite correctly, and then you miss your prior reroll, and then 7 Feck Dragons double turn you and you die on the spot. So going 2-drops is very convincing because you just don't need to worry about getting double turned anymore. At least like it's a coin flip against other 2-drops to get the choice. but that's more than the 3-drop lists get. So, and as a 2-drop list, you still get to have Scroll of Petrification, so you still have that contingency plan in case you don't get the prio. You don't get to choose priority. Another thing is Uruktar, bringing him, because he's like pretty expensive for this army, not compared to the rest of the game, but for this army, that like lets you fit into 2-drops a lot easier, but you're still kind of pressured because again you can't really take Hobgrots. I think there's definite cons and there's definite pros. It's a preference choice between the two. Yeah.
Yeah. And look, I'm not debating the value of 2-drop. Like, I put that to the side. 2-drop, good. Put to the side. not debating the value there. But where it comes down to, you've nailed it on the head. So to rewind for a second, you were talking about like your desolation. Yeah, desolate.
Despot.
DPP. Not this despot.
Desolation tokens. Yeah.
Yeah. When we desolate terrain and go to DPP, I traditionally will work the flanks because knowing that the battle often takes place in the center of some capacity, whether it's shift to the left, shift to the right. I take 2 units of Hobgrot, so I will often go for the flank, then kind of come in or race to the backfield if people ignore those Hobgrots. But I'm with you. The value of those Hobgrots as a additional screen going up against KO and then having multiple layers of having Hobgrots, then cohort, then my blunderbusses and friends. For me, in this particular army, yes, I'd love to be double 2-drops, but I often find it's not worth the trade-offs of having the extra damage from the War Despot in combination with the swords or spears. It's not worth dropping the Hobgrots for those early DPPs and screens. Yes, you can. For me personally, I'm comfortable playing with a 3 and then just having a game plan that if I go first, this is what I do. If I go second, this is what I do. And
oftentimes when you're playing a 3-drop list, you're going to have more units on the board than your opponent, and that's often like a strength that you leverage, like having more screens than them or just being in more places than them. Getting to be 3-drops gives you the board presence to have more agency over the game, but at the cost of not being 2-drops. 2-drops is very powerful.
But when you go into another 2-drop, then you don't even have the guarantee of avoiding the things that you're most worried about. So I would rather just accept that I'm not going to be given first and having a plan on A or B. If it means even breaking up my regiments and then deploying units at a time to kind of get the lay of the land, like whatever I have to do, and then just praying to the gods, praying to Hashut that that reroll works in my favor. Just pray.
I am also still in camp 3-drop, but like I can respect 2-drops decision. I can see why someone would choose to go 2-drops. They're both viable choices.
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying 2-drops is bad. I'm just saying for us, like, is it worth like the list choices and like how you build out the faction? For me personally, it's not quite there. But what is quite there, and probably to the surprise of many of us, was waking up the other day and seeing that we have a soggy update. So season Scourge of Ghyran blessed all of our factions with a bunch of rules and unique things. And for us, we got a couple of interesting things. So I thought this is partially why I wanted to revisit this. And Mitch, we got, let's just go through one at a time. So we got 2 battle formations. Now, first and foremost, let me just say, hallelujah. Probably one of the biggest weaknesses of Helsmiths was our battle formations, because it only worked when you had 3 DPPs. And it's like I love the council, but like, do I really want Uruktar sitting on 3 points just to get a thing? So we've got two new ones. We've got the Domination Force, where we are going to double the health characteristic of friendly non-Hobgrot Helsmiths of Hashut units for the purpose of power through. Second of all, we have an alternative one, which is the Industrial Polluters, where you subtract 1 from hit rolls for shooting attacks that target friendly Helsmiths infantry and cav, while they're wholly within 9 inches of a friendly Helsmiths war machine. Now, initial thoughts on this?
Yeah, so our default sub-factions or battle formations are like the best way to look at them are break in case of emergency buttons. You like they give you the option to put 3 demonic points on something because you really need something to happen right now. The casting one is because you really need a spell to go off, or because you just feel like always putting 3 on Uruk-Tar and always casting at a bonus. I've always been a fan of the cavalry one, because just like if I really need to throw my Ball Centaur unit into somewhere right now, giving them +5 to that is very useful. Just in case of emergency. The other two, I don't think have much going on for them, but I know some people people quite like the War Machine one sometimes. But these two here are just like nice passive abilities that we just get all the time, like every other army. So, which makes them quite a bit better than the default ones just off the bat.
Yes, agree. As cool as I remember looking at the battletome for the first time, getting really excited. I'm like, yes, the castigation battery. I get to add an extra attack to the ranged weapons of my war machines. Like, hallelujah! I'm so excited. And then that last bit is like, while it has 3 demonic power points, you're like, one, I don't get enough of those points to really start the party. And 2, do I even want them to have 3 DPP? So and then you start looking at all of them like, oh, right, okay, they're 3 DP dependent. And to your point, sometimes just 2 is enough. It's like, do I really want to spend the 3rd to get actually my battle formation that everyone gets for free for doing nothing? So let's talk about Domination Force first, because I know you and I are both a big fan of Industrial Polluters. We're both fans, we're hallelujah. But this one's not a bad one. This Domination Force, I think, has some play. Where are you at?
It's not bad. It's just niche. Industrial Polluters is also niche because not everyone has shooting. It's just that if Domination Force was the only option, I think I would probably be taking it over any of our default ones, just because it's a passive effect. Maybe I would sometimes take the cavalry +2 movement instead, because this is a neat effect. This is useful to have. Power through is a very strong command, and oftentimes the armies that use it the most are armies that are most dependent on it, and really hate not getting to use it because their cavalry does nothing if it's off the charge, or they're playing Sylvaneth, or so on and so forth. So getting to switch that off against some opponents is nice, but notably it doesn't switch off power through. It just makes it happen less. Monsters can still power through your infantry, and that is usually the primary use case of power through. Even 5 wound infantry can still power through off your infantry. If this was a harsher, just your opponent never gets to power through and you always get to power through, then this would be very strong and I'd be much more enthusiastic.
It is a niche, and it's worth a consideration if you're going heavy into your Bulgor or your Anointeds. If that's the core of your army, and you're finding that with the 4 health, you're not getting to power through all the things that you want to power through, then this works in your favor. And I guess the question is, do you go Domination Hexes or the Bulls of Ziggurat. And remembering that Bulls of Ziggurat is only going to help you if you have 3 demonic power points. Outside of that, if you're running heavy infantry, heavy anything else, I don't know how much value Domination Force is going to play. I don't think I've used power through that often as a Helsmiths player, unless it was the Bulgor. My Auric Tar as well. Yep. But like, is it worth my whole battle formation for that thing?
Is it worth your whole battle formation slot when Industrial Polluters is right there?
Yes. So I'm not saying it's bad, but it's a very niche. It's you've got a game plan in mind. You're very aggressive. You're going to play with 2 units of 6 Bulgor, or you've got a bunch of Bulgor. Like, that's your core of your army. Amazing. Industrial Polluters plays really well into the weakness that you've just said around your blunderbusses. Anyone with decent size range could go in and now obviously outside of like obscuring, like take out those 10 blunderbusses with ease that we pay a lot for and we rely on them. To me, that this is gold.
I think I usually find I can play pretty heavily around obscuring. That does involve like getting a 3-up roll to make my home objective obscuring a lot of the time. But like a very common board position is some hero over in a place of power using it to make my home objective obscuring where my blunderbusses are sitting, and then my bull centaurs are just hugging various other bits of obscuring terrain around my deployment zone. What that doesn't cover is like my big line of cohort that's sitting at the front just taking all the punishment. And Industrial Polluters just makes it very easy to take my Torment Bombard that was originally way in the back line and just push it a bit closer to the front line. And now all the shooting that my opponent is putting into my front line just gets weakened by a significant amount.
Yeah, I agree with you. The way I traditionally deploy is I'll have my line of cohort. So let's say hypothetically the line of cohort is against the deployment line. Then I will have behind that my War Despot and likely my Ashen Elder. My Ashen Elder is usually supported by the 10 blunderbusses, keeping the wholly within 6 benefit. And then usually behind that a little bit, depending on like the threats and things, but there'll be the 2 war machines, 1 rocket, 1 cannon. You're right. If I push them up a little further, not putting them in threats ways, not putting them as screen to accept charges, but if I use that 9 inches around, that's going to give me this, especially against a heavy shooting army, a very generous -1 to hit aura, at least keeping the opponent down to their base stat line.
And then like Uruktar gives off this aura as well, which is great. He's already like usually positioned in a way that you can take advantage of this. Like the other like our base sub-factions are I don't think they're bad. I just think they're like as they're emergency cases. You use our base sub-factions in cases where you absolutely need something right now. And Industrial Polluters instead just being a passive thing you get all game is hard to turn down in comparison.
Yeah, look, I think Industrial Polluters definitely is going to be where I'll be going moving forward. I think I can accept not having the council. I think I can deal with that because I'm often putting my points on everything. Look, I do put some points on Auric Tar, especially when I need the ward or the extra casting. Never 3. It's usually about 2. 2 is the sweet spot. So for me, Industrial Polluters is what I'm going to be moving towards in the future.
I find people often put 3 on Auric Tar if they like countercasting with him a lot.
Yes.
And in that case, there's still a good argument for the +1 to cast sub-faction, because like if a core part of your game plan is taking the morbid spell lore and then countercasting every turn, then like the +1 to cast is going to be very relevant for you.
Yeah, 100%, but it's those very niche situations. Now, something that's been very niche, and when you look at like the distribution of war scrolls in all of our factions, the thing that is least popular, and I think is only seeing play on tabletops, is because of the lack of models that people have, or maybe they've got the box set, the FOMO box, is our war machines. And I say that not necessarily about the cannon and not necessarily about the rocket, but our other friends. Our dominators, probably the least popular, and I'm sure Mitch is going to tell me why. And I agree with him. I don't disagree. I don't disagree with Mitch, but it's also a really sad moment. I'm like, I really want these things to work, and now have these new war machine accursed devices where you get one enhancement for a war machine, and there are 3 different things that I can choose from. So talk to me, Mitch, about these particular accursed devices, and do any of these stand out? I'm not going to read them out. Like, you've probably read them by now. I'm not going to read it by now. This is not story time. What are your thoughts about the accursed devices first and foremost?
Yeah, so they, it's like damage in melee, charge better, or like +1 to hit if they're close to you. These have been very explicitly designed to not work with the cannons and to work with the short range shooting and the melee that are not as great war machines do. The cowbots, I forget their actual name. Oh no,
Domination engine with
Dominator
maces.
That's it.
And maces and the cannons.
The Dominator engines are like definitely. I could see. I assume the Dominator engines are like the reason that a lot of people want to get into the army, just based on aesthetics. They are very cool. They're just sadly a little too small, which means the design team isn't allowed to give them that many wounds, so they only have 10. They're just kind of like not quite up to snuff for how you want to be using them. The numbers are just a little too low. There's just a little bit too little health, too few attacks. If they go down in points, I can't. Oh, they only have 2 OC as well. Only 2 control. If they go down in points, I can see them showing up more. But it's going to be in that kind of disappointing way where like you bring them because they're efficient for the points, not because they're actually cool by themselves. Like race to the bottom is never like an engaging way for a unit to be good. These enhancements don't make me want to add any of the war machines to a list that doesn't already have them. They just feel like a nice bonus to anyone who is already bringing one.
All right, I'm going to stop you for a second, because this is part of what I wanted to bring to you, right? Because we are recording pre-Battle Scroll, so we're expecting a Battle Scroll sometime in December, if not early January, but it's likely in the next 4 weeks is probably a fair assumption. If I was Games Workshop, I would do it before logging off for Christmas, but who knows, right? So I think first and foremost, does these enhancements, by the way, this is not trading off a heroic trade or an artifact. This is an extra piece, right? So if you have it amazing, this is free. Does this free enhancement encourage me to pick up a Bane Maces or a cannon type war machine and put it into my list? Am I going to take one of these new Dominator engines if I don't already have it? And I think part of the challenge as well, and we talked about this on Discord a little bit, was that points for points. You've got 170 points for the Dominator engine with Mace and 190 points for a Bulgur. Now, every day of the week, you take the Bulgur. Every day of the week.
The 3, yeah.
Yeah, you take 3. 3 Bulgur versus this, I think, every day of the week. Now, I was looking at, and in the discussion I was having before I summoned Mitch at the time, was that I'm like, right, okay, an equivalent would be like the Avatar of Cain in Daughters of Cain. Now that's 110 points. I'm not saying the Dominator engine should be 110, but like if there was a world where this was 130, 140, I think it's a really viable option. And now it's a big decision of like, do I take Bulgor? Do I take this? Me personally, I don't think this is enough for me to take it. But if you are taking it, amazing, you've got something for free.
I think where these actually shine the most is with the unnamed Taurus, the Demon Smith on Taurus. The lists, the Demon Smith on Taurus is a kind of niche unit. It does have a use. It does have a place that you can use it, and it is very strong in that place. That place is specifically being holding a scroll of petrification and running alongside a unit of 6 bull centaurs. And like that's a solid game plan. It's not. It has a few flaws, and often you just pick a regular mixed arms list instead. I do think these enhancements make that game plan more appealing, specifically the charge buff one, because it just makes it makes it more consistent getting your Taurus charging in with the bull centaurs, and the bull centaurs are like going to murder the thing you charge them into, and then the Taurus can body block things away from countercharging. It can be decently tanky and take the hits for the bull centaurs instead. It can then like power through away at the end of combat and scroll of petrification the unit of 6 centaurs that are still in there. Like, I think that's where these enhancements are going to be at their best. I do not think these enhancements encourage someone who isn't bringing a war machine to bring a war machine.
Yeah, that was kind of partially where I wanted to at least discuss, because I think some people listening to this are hoping that they got the FOMO box, maybe they got 2 of those FOMO boxes, and they're wanting to use, say, the Dominator engines, and they're like, is this enough? And I think, look, if you want to run the models, you do you. They're cool. They are very, very interesting. The 2-up save is fantastic. It's a solid little self-contained piece. But if you're looking for more damage, I think you're going to see more damage coming out of the Bulk. I know that you'll get more damage from the Bulk. Or if you want more saves or more health or more ball control, you're better off having another unit of cohort rather than this. So they're in this weird spot. But I will say you made an interesting point, because we've talked a lot about Oryctar. I love Oryctar, and this goes back to a discussion I had with a friend, is that Oryctar is a really good utility piece. He does good damage, not a great damage, but definitely good damage. Has spell casting, a good war scroll spell, has a good way to play with DPP, both on itself and onto other units. It's a good, solid overall piece. But it doesn't mean that the Demon Smith on Infernal Taurus is bad. It's just that I personally like being able to, in the enemy hero phase, pull points off a unit and go from offense to defense or defense to offense. Like I'm able to pull that lever.
Yeah.
That the Greed Pistons on a Demon Smith on Infernal Taurus, that changes things a little bit. Like if I'm a really aggressive, again, playing with multiple units of Bulgor, that's a really good combination.
Yeah. Like I think like Uruk-Tar is definitely a more generally applicable war scroll than the Demon Smith on Taurus. Most of the time he is going to be the better pick. The Demon Smith on Taurus is better in the niche ability to take enhancements, and the enhancements that you want him to take are Greed Pistons and Scroll of Petrification. It's a small subset of it's a small situation where you actually do want him, but I do think it's an effective setup. I think like he has his place, and in his place he can definitely he can perform.
Also a good recipient for an eye for weakness. That is such a good heroic trait. I just use it in my War Despot. I'm like, yo, you come near me and my sword's going to be getting +1 to wound. They're like, what? Now that aggressive, again, Demon Smith on Infernal Taurus, getting 3d6 charge, really good movability, playing support with the Bulgor. That's a really aggressive style of list that sounds like a lot of fun.
I don't know if it's like better than our mixed arms builds, but it's certainly there, and I'm like people are going to give it a try. I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up performing on par.
It's a playstyle preference, right? Like the destruction in me is like I want to just go fast in turn one and go smash, or go low drops, go for the double between 1 and 2 because these guys Bullgore does a lot of damage on the charge. A lot of damage with the crit mortals and mortals on the charge, and if you pull in the power through, then you happen to get the double, then you rinse and repeat. But as you said, if you get doubled, or they have the right tools, they are also quite squishy.
Yeah, like it's not going to, a Bull Centaur focus list with the Demonsmith on Taurus doesn't get to be just full aggro. Like you don't have the same permission that destruction armies do to do that, because you don't quite have the durability that they do. You need to instead make up for it with tricks like move blocking or using the Scroll of Petrification or having Hogwarts screen for you. Like,
yeah, no, wholeheartedly. Look, I think long story short, accursed devices, amazing for something for free. Would it help us take domination engines? I think we both agree that no, this alone doesn't make us take it if we don't already have it. If we already have it for whatever reason, amazing, something for free. And I think we both agreed that being added to a Infernal Taurus, especially like again, who knows at what points will look like if Tor goes up, Demonsmith goes down. But if you're someone who's struggling with points and you don't play around or value the manipulation of your DPP, Infernal Taurus is not a bad pick. It's actually quite a good pick and does bring some interesting things to play.
Yeah, there's definitely stuff there. If the Dominator Engine's got a soggy War Scroll, then that'd be exciting, but unfortunately they got left out.
Well, that leads us to the third and final part before we will obviously continue talking about Helsmiths, but this is the last part of the soggy update, and that is the Infernal Cohort and the War Despot. Do you run both of these? Not the soggy versions, but do you run the Cohort with Blades and the War Despot in your lists?
I do. I already run both of these units, and I already think they're both very good. But the Scourge of Ghyran updates across the game tend to be like the designers acknowledging War Scrolls where they like fell short and didn't make the unit as exciting as they could have. So the SOG option is a like neat way to bring that model back into relevance. I think that they picked incorrectly for Helsmiths. The ideal would have been the Sentinels, the other Centaur option, and then one of the Cowbots, one of the Dominator engines to get a SOG update. But instead we've gotten these two. In fairness, the Sword Cohort and the War Despot are both boring War Scrolls, like the standard War Scrolls. They're not super exciting. They just have like very boring, reliable abilities that are quite good and very useful for our game plan, but aren't anything that like get you excited about an army.
I will say, and I imagine like just knowing like the design process and how it works early off, like when this War Scroll would have been built, you know that it was like not long after the box came out, and you know at that time everyone was talking about spears. Cohort with spears dominated the chat. Like it was just, and it was for 10 points difference between sword and spears, with anti-charge and anti-cavalry, and cavalry having a lot of popularity in the game. Spears every day of the week, they are so good, and like I have now gained a new appreciation for swords. I'm now a little bit more reliant on my Ashen Elder to get the Rend and Crit Mortal prayer off to compensate for the anti-charge and the anti-cav. But yes, upon reflection, if I was going to be building it today, Robo Bulls or Cow Bulls having the Dominator engines and the Anointed would definitely be a war scroll that I think we'd revisit. I think we knew, like when I talked to Spoon about this a couple of months ago, we knew that the Bulgors were going to dominate, like compared to Sentinels. Sentinels had the interesting counterplay with the counter charge, and we weren't quite sure at the time if that trick alone would be enough to increase its popularity. But you rarely see Anointeds. Like Anointeds are so rare.
The numbers just aren't there for them, unfortunately. When you compare the two war scrolls, Bull Centaurs and Anointed Sentinels, it's the Bull Centaurs have one more attacker model and they have crit mortals, and that's the only difference. It doesn't seem like that much. When you plug that into a calculator, Bull Centaur, those two little changes double the damage. But Anointed do literally half the damage that Bull Centaurs do.
The amount of those crit mortals, especially when you're starting to move the damage characteristic to 3 on the charge, it's so brutal. Like, it gets you out of so much trouble. Like, here's 15 mortals. Like, here's 12 mortal. And like going up against even AO with like their high armor saves, like, cool, he goes a boat, he goes a boat.
Even just a unit of 3 Bull Centaurs is like you pretty consistently doing at least 6, sometimes 9 mortal wounds.
Yeah, they're brutal. Anyway, let's actually go back to the soggy war scroll available, right? When you look at these two, how do you think they compare to the other ones? So I guess almost kind of like the last discussion is, are these war scrolls, if I don't have them in my list, worth considering? And if I do have them in my list, like you and I both use swords, would you swap for the soggy swords, or are you happy with your existing swords? Knowing that you can only take one. So like even in my list, my current list, I've got 2 units of cohort with swords. The rules for SOG say that if you take one war scroll, it has to be the same. So you can't have one of each.
Yeah, so starting with the new cohort war scroll, I kind of wish these were spears instead of swords. So coming from Fire Slayers, I need to stress to people how good Auto Run 4 is on a 4-inch move unit. It's not like, I can understand why people would read that ability at first and assume it's kind of lame, because it's like one sentence and it's not a very exciting sentence. It doesn't, you don't have run and charge. It doesn't work with redeploys. But there are some missions in the game. There's actually quite a few missions in the game where a 5-inch move from the edge of your deployment does not get you to the objective. So if you have a 4-inch move unit and you roll a 1 on your run roll, you miss. There are other cases where you just need to get, like, you've put your brick of cohort on a flank, and then your opponent has shifted around to focus on the other flank, and your unit of cohort is just kind of left without a job anymore. In those situations, sometimes you want to start running this unit to get back into the fight to be relevant, or you want to start running it into their deployment to get onto an objective they have. And just all of these cases, just getting to do all of that without having to spend command points is amazing. In Fire Slayers, or if you are using spears instead, you have to spend command points to do anything. And it really hurts, especially in this army, where one of our command points in the early game is already reserved for the demonic power points, and our other command points are reserved for all-out attacking on our big unit, on our big damage dealers, or like sometimes you need to redeploy or you rally things. We're already very command point hungry, and having the extra demand to use command points in movement as well, because our 4-inch move units can't get anywhere, or our 4-inch move units need to get somewhere, is verging on too much demand on our points. So the base swords just always getting to roll a 4 minimum. Sometimes they roll a 6 and you pick that instead, but they're always moving at least 8, is just a very reliable thing that takes off stress from your command points and lets you distribute your resources elsewhere. That being said, because this unit replaces swords, and doesn't have the auto run, that means if you want to take this, you have to just go without that auto run ability. So that's going to bring back the demand on your command points that 4-inch move armies come with. The abilities themselves are neat. Like the Gong Carrier that this unit have is different to the Gong Carrier rally buff that the other cohort has, and this one is quite a bit better. And like the end of turn ability to quote unquote rally your other units by spending models from this unit is cool. But having to go without the auto run is a rough price to pay for this unit.
So I guess the question, I don't disagree with anything you just said. I don't disagree at all. No. Like the value of a guaranteed for being saving a command, or at least knowing that for sure, if I deploy my unit here, or like currently there's a gap between the objective or a piece of terrain, or I want to try to screen off or get into or whatever it is, like whatever I need my army to do, I know that I've got a minimum base of my movement characteristic plus 4 when I make a run roll. That gives me guarantees, right? Great. But outside of that, like if I look at the 2 new rules, or like the modified gongs, which is good, but it says take up their arms. I'm trying to think about like in what world do I need this rule? And is it? And then I guess the question is like, is it worth the trade-off of say the run ability? And
the additional trade-off is that these guys are 10 points more expensive as well.
Yeah, they're on par with spears, and I'll take spears every day of the week. The spears are just insane. I love spears so much. It's just unfortunate my current list is on the cusp of 2,000 points, which means I either take Forbidden Power or spears.
Yeah,
and like right now, I'm like, I really need Breach. Breach has been a really protecting me from turn 1 charge, people charging me, or obviously a great delivery mechanic of the Bulgor.
So yeah, this takes
but like, do I need it?
So this take up their arms ability has a specific case where it's at its best, and that case like isn't uncommon. It's where you've got like your unit of blunderbusses that are decently protected, but you've made a mistake somewhere, and the opponent has like managed to get a couple attacks into them. Like they've found a hole in your screen, or they've like a flying model was able to hop over your screen and be coherent through it with the rest of its unit. Like something has happened such that your blunderbusses get hit for like 6 damage, but don't get killed because like your opponent was barely able to reach them, but not quite enough. That like isn't uncommon. If you play perfectly, it never happens, but like you're not going to. And this is good in that situation where you're able to now just move 3 models from your sword unit to your blunderbusses and get them back up to being relevant quicker. But yeah, like it's unfortunate that once you take models out of the sword unit this way, they can't be rallied back. When another reason to bring this unit is it has a really good rally. Like
Yeah.
And then to have this functionality, you need to go without default swords, which is a hard pill to swallow because default swords are just really useful.
I guess like there are niche situations where this is valuable. I agree with you. There's niche situations. I think the reason that comes up often, or like what's the primary reason for me using this, would be that I can't use rally. Because in the argument that you just positioned to me, if I had 10 go down to 4, the obvious answer is in my hero phase or your hero phase, I just rally.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm an army that is super command point intense and I can't afford the rally, then either A, I just need to not rally, or B, sacrifice something else.
And we are
or B, I'm stuck in combat and I can't rally for whatever reason, or obviously someone shut off commands, right? And I'm like, okay, cool. That is actually a really valuable position. A couple of my games lately have had like backboarding, Dark Oath coming from the back of the board, for example, teleporting into my backfield. I had, I think, some Vargeist come into my backfield once as I advanced up the board, and then tag the War Machines or tag the blunderbusses. So I can't rally. I'm in combat. That makes sense. But is that worth the 10 points for swords? Or 20 points if I'm going to reinforce it, because knowing that like I can't use that ability and then that unit kind of size goes down, maybe I'm starting those units at 20. I don't know. And like, it's not a bad rule. It's just an interesting rule.
I'm currently leaning towards I'm currently leaning towards staying with the default swords, because I value them quite highly. I can see a world where like these go down to 100 to be on par with the regular swords, and then it does become a harder decision. Yeah. And, like, the buffed rally is very good. These guys are rallying for like 11. Like that.
Or unless you're taking them, not using take up their arms, and you're purely going all in on the sanctified gongs, and if you ignore the take up their arms, but then you're trading off the run of 4. I don't think that if they were the same points, then I think this is a much closer discussion. I think the fact that it's an extra 10 points, I'm reinforcing my cohorts to be units of 20, so that's an extra 20 points per cohort unit. I've got 2 units of cohort currently in my army, so that's an extra 40 points that I don't already have to begin with. I can't afford that personally, but it's not a bad set of rules. I can't afford that extra points.
Yeah. So I think currently, as we are now, I'm sticking with old swords. I can see these becoming more relevant.
Yeah, I agree.
And then the other one, the despot here. So this guy is another war scroll that is kind of dull, but I love him. The default war despot is another set of abilities that is difficult to see the value in when you're just reading it. How he plays, I need you to trust me. He plays so much better than he reads.
Yeah, and I'm going to agree with that, because at first I was so anti-war despot. I was against it. Like, this is useless. Like, obviously you can add an extra attack when you trigger that the fight you scum, and like when you play into that, it's a great rule. But if you're not playing into that, like, or you're keeping the hero in the backfield for whatever reason, like, Black-Hearted Conqueror is fine. So I want to be putting my DPPs onto him to boost that up? Not really. Do I really need control score extra? Like, do I need extra control score? Not really. I haven't found myself in a position where I've needed it.
So, let me advertise the War Despot for a bit. So to start with, cohort's damage at its base is quite bad. Two attacks a model, 3s and 4s, damage 1 is nothing impressive. The War Despot's +1 attack buff takes this unit that's not very impressive and makes it fine. Especially plus his own handful of crit mortal attacks. Like, it turns this package that is just very cheap and you're using purely defensively into something that, like, your opponent isn't just allowed to ignore in combat activations. Like, it's something that will actually do a relevant amount of damage. So, and you can add on the Ashen Elder Prayer to make that even stronger as well, or like
extra ran crit mortals. Yeah,
they're not, like, even when they have all of their buffs, they're not murdering gargants or anything like that. They're just doing respectable amounts of damage and then being tanky enough. Like, it's a good place to be, because the cohort as a unit is very optimized to be very defensive. The cohort are very cheap because their attacks are bad. So getting to bring this cheap unit that's good defensively and then make it attacks fine is like a nice tool to have. Especially on a 90-point hero. And then the control buff. This is the big ability. Plus 3 control score doesn't sound like much, but I assure you it is. The War Despot himself is always control score 5. The War Despot and a single banner cohort on an objective is counting as 10. You throw like another foot hero there, and now you're counting as 15. Your opponent has the scouting battle tactic, and you just sit your War Despot next to a random terrain piece, and suddenly it's a pain for them to actually control it. Because they need to put 6 OC on there. You can put like 1 or 2 other models on there, and now they're looking at having to put 11 or 12. Like, I've only actually put demonic points on the guy a couple of times because I needed him to reach out and hold on to an objective that he was quite far away from to make sure my opponent couldn't get it. You don't do that often, but the option is there. But with how subpar we are at battle tactics, denying opposing battle tactics is a very important part of our game plan, and the War Despot control buff is a very useful tool for doing that. Either stopping them from controlling an objective they need for Restless, or terrain they need for scouting. He's also, like, just kind of tanky. Like, 3 up save, 6 wounds. If he's hiding in the Ashen Elder bubble, then it's kind of 7 wounds. Like, that's not insignificant. Your opponent can't kill him with just random chaff. They need to actually put effort into it, which is annoying for them, especially if they have Master the Paths. Like, for 90 points, he's a really good option.
The crit models, the good save. You're right. What the current War Despot does is a bit of a mixed force, right? Because he has a little buff piece for the cohort, all the spears. You've got the objective control. You've got a couple of little things to play around with. He's also the War Scroll that gets dropped pretty quickly when people realize they've run out of points. So it's like as much as you're a big fan of the War Despot, it also gets dropped pretty quickly because it's stopping you from being a 2-drop, or you just don't have enough points. But in saying that, I agree with you. I have been playing a lot with the double cohort, and this has been a real MVP, both doing its damage itself, but also the bringing swords to 61 attacks and not 41 attacks is huge. Is absolutely huge, especially, as you say, when you get the Ashen Elder in, you get the Eye for Weakness in, becomes like I think in that Cities game I was talking about, 20 cohort lifted almost all of the 10 Cavaliers.
No,
they're a real well, with that combination, like they just absolutely, like, you're playing a volume game and they just murder. Anyway, let's talk about the other War Despot, right? So I think you and I both are fans. We like the current War Scroll.
Yeah.
What does this bring, and what do I lose?
A very important thing to keep in mind, the default War Despot is 90 points. This new guy is 140. Which is, he's 140.
Okay, so I've already lost 50 points if I swap my sword cohort.
That's almost an entire Hobgrot unit.
I think I missed that. I think I missed that he was 140. Like, oh, holy Moses! All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, right.
So that's all. He's already got a. Yeah, he's got some big shoes to fill if he's demanding 50 extra points. Now, by taking this guy, you miss out on the original Despot, which I am not a fan of. But maybe he makes up for it himself. His first ability is neat. I believe, with how it's worded, even if you shoot something and you miss the mortal wounds, you still get the retreating charge, I believe.
Pick a visible enemy unit within 12 inches of this unit to be the target. Then you pick a friendly infantry, obviously Helsmiths unit, infantry unit in combat. Roll a d3 on a 2+ inflicts some mortal damage. If there is a friendly target for the rest of the turn,
that target gets buffs. Yeah. I believe because it's a separate like paragraph or something, it's not tied to the 2-up. I don't know. If the retreating charge is tied to the 2-up, then he's kind of disappointing. It's like kind of swingy and unreliable. If it's not tied to the 2-up, that's pretty cool.
As somebody who reviews War Scrolls on the daily, normally what would happen if it was tied, it would then say then blah 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 blah. But there's no linkage there, so you might be right there that even if you don't do the mortals, you then, as long as you target something, then you do the thing.
Yeah. So like, as a reliable source of retreating charge, like that's cool. That's not a tool we have besides the Infernal Taurus package.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the Infernal Taurus gets to do it to cavalry, bull centaurs, and bull centaurs really like charging. This doesn't. This doesn't get to do it to cavalry or war machines. It's only infantry.
You beat me to that. You beat me to that. I was going to call that out. It says infantry, so you can't do that for your bull cav.
So all he gets to do is give retreating charge to cohort and grots, and I guess also raise like blunderbusses and flamers, assuming they haven't died. So how useful that is a difficult question, because retreating charge is a very powerful effect. Just getting to reposition yourself in a combat while still staying in that combat and still doing damage is very useful. Especially if you're like fighting over sneaking onto objectives, or like fighting to screen, like to fill in holes so your opponent can't squeeze through and tab important things. But like, importantly, that's all this ability is going to be really used for. This is a positioning ability. It is not a damage ability.
And because of that, for example, I just want to get this in. We don't have really any abilities that are triggered off a charge outside of what we just said around the
cavalry.
Yeah. Like my cohort don't get any bonuses for charging. The cohort on the screen right here are not getting any bonuses for charging. So what you're playing for, to your point, is repositioning, whether it is more models onto an objective, a better position fight for you, or getting into a fight that you really want to get into.
Yeah. So this is a utility ability, which is already making that 50-point difference kind of hurt, because the other War Despot is a utility ability. He has two things, a utility ability and a damage ability. And this utility ability, I think, is not as good, because he doesn't have OC5, he only has OC2. You lose out on the secondary denial that the default Despot has, which is significant because we really want to be denying secondaries.
Can I just say one call out in favor of the War Despot, and then we'll move to the other ability, is if you are someone who's finding that they're actually, you know what, not even blunderbusses, the flamers, the other option, right? They've got a range of 12. They've got a range of 12. So you've got to be more aggressive with this unit than your blunderbusses. If you're finding that your unit is getting tagged, it's getting into combat, and knowing that, for example, blunderbusses don't shoot in combat, this might be an option for you to retreat out of combat, not take the damage, and then still shoot in your shooting phase. So,
and like what you want, because flamers do have shooting combat, but that isn't always what you want to be shooting.
No, and that's why I specifically said the blunderbusses.
Yeah.
But like if you are playing in that world where that is happening to you, then there is an argument in favor for this War Despot. But if you're playing heavy in cohort, then it's playing against you, because the +1 attacks is just really good.
And also, old Despot plus a unit of Hobgrots is 160 compared to this guy's 140, and that unit of Hobgrots can be used to help screen you out, to stop your guns getting tagged.
I wasn't even going to talk about points. I'm just talking pure War Scroll comparison. But yes, like now you're adding 50 points to the mix. Anyway, there is another set of rules I'd love you guys to talk about.
This second ability is another interesting one. You put demonic points on this guy, and he gets a 9-inch bubble of count as having 1 demonic point. So, and then you can put more points on him to make that range bigger. One of the...
So I'll read that a little while.
Hey. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, right. So one of the drawbacks of the demonic point system is that we can only buff like a handful of units at once, which encourages us away from like MSU things. Like units of 5 blunderbusses are not very interesting because you can't really devote demonic points to that few models. So this does like open up the option of having like a package of units that are happy just with 1 point and huddling them around this guy. Yeah.
So let me jump in here.
Yeah.
So that actually plays really well with the play style that I have, because I'll have this little castle core, right, where I have 2 units of cohort who are my screens. I then have a blunderbuss unit in the middle. And to Mitch's point, the challenge is having all those DPPs around where if I'm moving them up in this little castle, even if it's a 9-inch or it's a little higher, what it allows me to do is have my cohort sitting on a 6-up ward by having one point, and I'm having rend 1 on my blunderbuss. So I'm getting, in a way, if you're playing a castle, that's actually not bad. It's actually not a bad little rule, because you're getting more points around, and then maybe you put your extra points onto other things, your war machines, your Taurus, whatever. So that in itself isn't a bad rule. But I guess the question, I don't want to harp on this too much, because I do want to kind of end the show with some final questions and some lists, is this package, is this War Despot worth trading my existing War Despot, knowing that I get +1 attacks, and mind you, the War Despot has to be into the fight, so I can't just sit passively behind the lines getting +1 attack. It's a playstyle preference. This is probably a much better sitting behind the lines kind of support piece. But I don't know if it's worth trading off the existing War Despot for this War Despot. And that's even if the points were 90 points apiece. Like if they were the same points, I probably would still lean on the old War Despot. But now that it's even higher, I'm going old War Despot.
It's also like one unit of 10 blunderbusses with like some demonic points on them and an all-out attack kind of does the same damage as this War Despot surrounded by some number of blunderbuss units. I think like 3 of them, through like 3 min-sized units. It just seems more efficient to stick with the regular demonic point plan that we're already on, of like focusing on specific units and focusing buffs on them. And then I'm not a fan of losing the old War Despot for this guy. This ability is relevant in the Army of Renown, because that has some very weird interactions with demonic points. So like I can see him showing up in there. Otherwise, I think I'm sticking with the old one.
Yeah, I don't think either of these war scrolls are bad, mate. I think they are serving a purpose and a niche. I think for a lot of people, that niche isn't needing to be filled. But if you're someone, as we've just talked about, where you are finding your units are being tagged, you can't rally in combat or whatever it is, or you see a really good interplay between the cohorts and whether it's your war machines or whether it's your blunderbusses, like that cohort could be great. The War Despot, if you're not relying on the +1 attack, you're looking at more of the DPP distribution, then this one might work. But I think for most people, they'll stick with the existing war scrolls. Any final comments on this before we move into some lists?
Not yet, no.
All right, we could talk forever here. I think we so like in the spirit of like not talking forever, We've got 3 lists to show. Mitch has got a list he's currently running. I'll show you what I'm currently running, but you'll quickly see my battle formation is going to change, and then an alternative one. So, what's the high level piece here, and I guess what are the things that I need to know, and how this list is kind of working?
Yeah, so this is a list without Uruktar. I could talk for hours about Uruktar. I will try to rein myself in. We'll talk about that more when we get to the other lists. But for this one here, this is I like having a lot of reliable tools. I like having a lot of board presence, and this is a list that focuses on that. You've got your screens. You've got your scroll petrification, I have weakness combo, because I think that's just the correct enhancement combo. There's the big unit of bull centaurs to deal with big problems. There's the little units of bull centaurs to deal with little problems. And then there's guns. Notably, I'm taking a unit of blunderbusses and then also a unit of flamers. An alternative to this list is to replace the flamers with a rocket battery and then shuffle points around elsewhere. But as you mentioned last time, having just a single rocket battery doesn't really work as a damage piece. It works more as just like something that randomly gets people and scares them and like maybe makes them play differently. A little while back, I cut that in favor of 20 more shooting infantry. Specifically 10 flamers over another unit of blunderbusses, because my unit of blunderbusses is already hogging at all-out attack. So flamers don't need that. So I can shoot with both both can be effective, and I can shoot with them both at the same time. This list is a little light on throwaway screens. It's got 10 cohort, 10 hobgrots, and 20 cohort and scroll of petrification, and that's it for like units that you're happy to throw away. So what often ends up happening is that the flamers do double duty as another screen, like blocking up a deep strike hole or blocking up a corridor, and then if they get to survive, then they get to participate in the rest of the game. Because like they're very short range does mean they have to be positioned quite suicidally. Usually they end up surviving not because they're tanky or anything, but more just because this list has a lot of threats and a lot of things that the opponent is being forced to deal with, like bull centaurs in their face and other guns and cohorts that's blocking up things. The flamers just kind of get to cheat on by not getting by being a lower priority target than the unit of bull centaurs in their face or something like that.
Yeah, like I want the flame, like you said earlier, like you'd love Anointed to get an alternative war scroll. Like these razors for me are another one where I'm like, I'm so underwhelmed with the points differential between blunderbusses and flame hurlers. Like, I guess on one hand, flame hurlers will be great for covering fire because you're now hitting on 3s with 3 attacks each, and like it's really great. But the 12-inch range is a real deterrent. But maybe that's a decent, as you said, backfield objective, or maybe a flank piece that's kind of moving around. So I don't hate the unit. But it's really interesting because you're right. You could trade those 10 razors with flame hurlers for a rocket or another cannon or something else. And I think I actually like the fact that we've got units to choose from, where alternatively in other armies, it's like this is the one and only option. So we can debate pros and cons, but it's a really interesting one, especially without like a big centerpiece of a Taurus.
Yeah, like we have a couple dud units, but overall our internal balance is really good. We have a lot. We're really encouraged to play a variety of units. We have a lot of options for what those units can be. We've got the core units, and then what you put alongside them. There's a lot of room for personal taste.
Yeah. Anything else you're worth calling out on this particular list? I love it. It's certainly very different to what you see. What people are running. I'm probably running a more traditional list.
The The main weaknesses of this list are things that can blunt your damage. This list is quite reliant on bull centaurs actually doing damage, and like blunt and razors actually doing damage. And most of the time they do, because they are very min-maxed to do damage. But like there are armies like Necropolis Stalkers from Ossiarch Bone Reapers, or like just armies that get to run armies that get to run as many units as you do and get to run get to match you with screens. This list is at its best when it has more units than the opponent. And like that, you get to leverage the board control you get from that, the threat density you have. The opponent just struggles to deal with all the things you have in a like reasonable time frame. And while they're trying to clean up some units, other units are beating them up. But because you're quite dependent on a lot of these squishy units, you've got a lot of bull centaurs, you've got a lot of razors. Those are all very fragile units. It's quite demanding. The positioning is quite demanding to make sure the opponent can't get into your like vulnerable damage dealers.
Maybe one final question about your list, because I know the chat would be asking it. Why not 2 units of 6 bull centaurs? Why do you have 6 and then 2 3s?
Yes, so bull centaurs have a very bad habit of dying after you've used them. You run them into something, they murder it, and then they get killed because they are not tanky. So the unit of 6 bull centaurs does oodles of damage. There is not much in the game that can survive it. When you face something in the game that can survive it, you have a hard time. The units of 3 are important to deal with problems that you need to deal with, but aren't quite big enough to devote a 400-point unit to. So, say, like, a screen unit that is currently sitting on an obscured objective, like, that's kind of out of the way and your cohort can't reach. Or just, like, a smaller threat that is sitting in threat range of bigger things behind it. So, you do need to deal with it, because if you don't, it's going to crash into your vulnerable pieces. But your shooting is otherwise occupied, and if you send your big unit of 6 into it, they're going to get counterstruck. So you just send this little unit of 3 to deal with the problem, and then you're happy losing them.
Yeah, I dig that. And there's been plenty of times where I've wished that I've had a unit of 3 and not had to send a unit of 6 in, especially if you're playing on the flanks, and then you might lose a turn trying to get back into the fight. While a unit of 3 is much more tradable, maybe it also is when you want to use bridge, for example, should you have forbidden power, it's a much easier unit to pull the trigger early. I like it.
Also, when I talk about threat density and like the opponent having to deal with too many things at once, when you send a unit of 3 bull centaurs in to murder something, it's usually pretty easy for the opponent to kill it back, but the act of doing that does require them to commit resources. Opponents can't just kill things for free. They need to devote shooting there instead of elsewhere, or they need to actually send a melee unit in to deal with it. And that is like tempo that you then use. If they had to send something substantial to kill your unit of bull centaurs, that then exposes it to getting shot by blunderbusses or charged by the bigger unit of bull centaurs.
Yeah, the longer you hold your opponent up, the more likely those razors, the cannons, and things like that. And then once they get through those bull centaurs, they've still now got to handle those 20 cohort, 10 cohort, the razors. So it's this wave of difficulty they've got to beat through. So I love that. I'll talk really quickly about mine. So mine is probably much more of a traditional list. And I say traditional as like most people are doing a bit of a mixed arms list. So for me, I've got Auric Tar. Auric Tar for me is just a really valuable, and I've talked a little bit about Auric Tar in this particular list. Just is a good centerpiece, has high mobility, so it can support the bull centaurs if required. It can be its own independent threat if I need it to be going alternatively, or it can be a distraction carnifex where people are focusing fire on it and not focusing on my other troops. And obviously the tankiness of the 5-up ward if I have any points on them. I just find the utility of Auric Tar is just too good to walk away from. For the way I like to play.
Yeah.
I've been playing a lot with the 2 war machines, so having 1 rocket, 1 bombard. I am considering dropping the bombard and going for double rockets. And I know that's like heresy because people love the 3-up no commands, and when it goes off, I love it too. When it doesn't go off, I realize that the bombard, I don't need the damage from the bombard as much as I need the damage from the rockets, and 1 rocket doesn't do enough.
I find, so to touch on Uruk quickly, I find him to be good over the course of an entire game, but very unreliable on a turn-by-turn basis.
Yes.
His attacks are very swingy unless you have all-out attack to devote to him, which is, again, more demand on our resources. He's very good at casting, but whenever you miss a cast, it hurts quite a bit. Not even actual miscasting, just like rolling a 3 and not casting Molten Metal. Suddenly that's a lot of damage you've now missed out on. His shooting is the swingiest profile I've ever seen. He is very fast. I will give him that. His speed is quite reliable. He can, like, you move, you charge, then you 2d6 move again, and that whole scheme lets him jump from one corner of the board to the other. He can be quite durable, which is quite nice, but when he gets charged, often his attacks can end up being kind of anemic, especially if you don't have the resources to all-out attack his bad profile, because he's not on the charge. Sometimes he needs to devote the resources to getting himself out of combat rather than actually targeting things you want to be targeting. And because he can be swingy, if he fails to do so, you'll then need to devote more resources to him. He's a very good unit over the course of the entire game, and the demonic point transfer ability that he has is really useful.
Yes.
I'm personally not taking him because I often plan my turns very explicitly, and not being able to trust him on any specific turn irks me.
See, for me, the way and this is really where preference comes in, because I am somebody who plays a lot. I like to call it counterplay, where I never have a game plan. If you look like like if you look at the masters of chess and like how a chess master becomes a master, they don't have a game plan. They have a move, one move at a time. So for me, every little decision that happens on the table, I will then make a micro decision and then respond appropriately. And that's where, for me, Auric Tar is valuable, being able to start offensively, whether it's putting those points on the cannon or the blunderbusses, or whether it's the bull centaurs, and then being able to move those points around to then put them defensively on the cohort or manipulate the board. I will say, in defense of Auric Tar as well, my experience from being, so like back in 2nd edition, I was, for 9 months, I exclusively played what was back then the Legions of Nagash, now to become Soulblight Gravelords. And there was a lesson that I learnt by playing Manfred and Neferata back then, and that is they are not Prince Vordry, they're not Archaon, they're not Alariel. They can go in and just smash face in combat. Your Manfreds and your Neferatas, Manfred especially, is very much a war scroll that has to pick its fights. And I find Auric Tar is one of those that picks its fights. And then my experience with Gargants having a 130 mil base, and knowing how to play the board with 130 mil base, because that rampage is bloody awesome. But it's so hard to pull off if you're not thinking about that that movement with a really large base. You'll block yourself off. You won't get where you want to be. So I guess what I'm saying is that Auric Tar is good, but it's not great, and it's not a must include. It's a good utility piece, but you've got to play it really, really good to get the most value out of the course of the game.
Yeah. And as for the rest of this list, this is I think as the type of list that a lot of people end up on when they're first looking at the army.
Yeah, like I've played around with a bunch of things, right? Like when I love my spears, but unfortunately a unit of spears means I can't have forbidden power. I love these hobgrots, and I've got 2 units of hobgrots because they are getting my DPPs. They are also helping me score battle tactics, also getting into backfields, and just generally being annoying. So for me, having multiple units of the Vandals have been really valuable. It's very much a mixed list, but I'm very curious to explore other parts of the book. I have thought about dropping the Bull Centaurs to have more. One of the things that I've struggled with at times has been Alpha Strike lists. Like the only game that I've lost right now, mind you, like I've had a lot of Alpha Strike lists. I had a Blades of Corn list go into my face at the top of turn 1 with 3 Bloodthirsters and 6 Skull Crushers. I've had like Cities list come into my face at the top of turn 1. I had Git's Chariots come into my face at the top of turn 1. I've had some really aggressive players, and we are an army that plays better in the long game, and not having a lot of DPPs to play around with in the early game. I found that that's where I struggle the most. Luckily, I've fought out of most of those situations, but for me, those Vandals are good.
Part of the reason I'm on the list I'm on is that I have a solid game plan against the Alpha Strike stuff, because the command for 2 DPP on one of your guns, putting your 2 demonic points on the other guns, and then Bull Centaurs don't need demonic points for their damage, means that the counter punch you have is quite potent for someone who has just placed their entire army in your face.
And that's where, like, for me, like having the Vandals being able to, like, I played against KO and I had the Vandals at the front, then I had the cohort, then I had my other troops, and then pre-game moving them 5 meant that it made the charge really hard, or they could only charge into the Vandals, and then either I countercharge or my responded. So, like, there is some really interesting play. I'm just going to pray to Hashut that Phoenix Chariots get a little nerf. But it's very much a mixed list. And I think for me, Forbidden Power as well, being able to bring out Bridge as a denial space as opposed to not always having to deliver the Bull Centaurs can be valuable as well.
It's quite good, especially with the Rook,
So that's the list that I'm currently, but I'm also playing around. Like, you and I are both going to the same major tournament. So like with Battle Scroll coming up, I'm trying to explore a couple of different options. I've played around with different things, but I'm not quite sold on my battle tactics yet. Intercept and Recover and Master the Paths. The third list is your alternative list. And I know you were very passionate to kind of show off that you're not such an Oraktar hater as Discord thinks you might be.
So this is a list I wanted. So this is not a list I created, but it is like one I've been playing around with. I believe it was taken from a French event. This is a list that goes against everything I say about the army, but has also been doing quite well.
I hate when that happens. You're like,
hate when that happens.
Eat my one.
So yeah, you can see this list has 2. It's got the double rocket battery you were considering bringing yourself. Rocket batteries in multiples start feeling a lot better because you start getting towards the volume needed to deal with the swinginess of them. It's only 6 attacks is still pretty swingy, but at least it's better than just 1. Notably, this list also doesn't have any blunderbusses. This is like you have 40 cohort. That is your screen, and then everything else is focused on killing the opponent. I do think that this list was taken from a Teams event, which is part of why it has Master the Paths, because it wants to be getting paired into people with hero monsters to use the double rocket battery against. But this list can still play against a wide variety of things, just because the cohort are a good tool for screening. It is 2 drops, so as I was talking about before, you can't bring MSU units, or MSU screens, you can't bring hobgrots, so it's suffering a little in board presence, in that, like, in terms of taking up space with units, it's okay that with losing. It's only got the 40 cohort, and the rest of it needs to be quite on the ball of whittling down the opponent's army.
Yeah. Look, I like it. It's another alternative, and maybe you're right. It's much better in a teams event. But I think we're kind of showing 3 different ways that you can play with this list. And like, I think, your first list, you had the 6/3/3 bull centaurs. I've got in my second list having 2 units of spears, 2 units of cohorts. And I've told you about my love of spears. One thing I will say though on my old list is, now that we have Soggy, this Demon Smith Cabal is going straight to Industrial, because that to me that to me is way more valuable. And what I will say as well right now is that with the Demon Streaker rocket, so the Death Streaker rocket, I'm compensating by using my blunderbusses with Ren 2 or Ren 3 to finish off the job, where if I had a second Death Streaker rocket, I think I could probably finish off the job without the blunderbusses. And maybe there is a world where I don't need the blunderbusses, or the blunderbusses are focused somewhere completely different, and maybe less reliant on the Ren, because I'm not trying to take down heroes with all that defense and a very good armor save. So 3 really interesting lists, and I think that's there's so many ways we can build it. There is a lot of questions that came out from the chat, and I think we've kind of acknowledged a lot of them. One that we haven't really acknowledged, and I wouldn't mind kind of wrapping up, because we could talk here forever, Mitch. Because one thing I was really excited to see as well is the Regiments of Renown. Yeah. Not our one, guys. That list was always going up. Like, to get that was always going up. So sorry, CanCon people who were building their lists, but we have not had access to the Regiments of Renown because they just hadn't been updated.
Yeah, until somewhat recently.
Yeah, only recently. I was having a look and trying to work through, like, is there a world, or is there any of these Regiments of Renown that I would use personally in my list? And right now, not really sure. Like, I had a thought around the Nurgling one. I thought there might be some play in the Nurgling Regiment of Renown, but I was struggling to get out of my faction and just thinking that I could spend my points better in my own faction. Maybe the Ogreoid one, maybe. I don't know. Like, do you have any thoughts on Regiments of Renown?
So, usually when someone is dipping into allies, it's for a handful of reasons. It's either because their army is missing something for a specific job. Usually it's like a cheap wizard or a cheap screen. Or it's because, like, one of the ally options is just very undercosted. Or it's because one of the ally options has, like, some weird cool ability that you feel like using, like the Stumblefoot Gargant. Because we're a well-designed army, we don't really need anything. We're not missing anything that would be solved by allies. We have cheap wizards, we have cheap screens, we have damage dealers. In a niche case, something that we are missing is a solo operative unit. Everything we have wants to be working with something else. Bull Centaurs want to be screened, our heroes want to be supporting, our screens want damage dealers behind them. Like, everything wants to be working as a team. So we don't really have anything that can go out on its own and hang out on a flank for a bit. I think the Cowbots are, like, supposed to be that, but they're kind of underwhelming currently, so practically we're missing something for that job, which does make a couple of the allies an interesting option. People have been throwing around ideas for using Scarbrand or using the Gargant, like the big Gargant. They are very expensive, though.
Yes. And
another problem we have is that allies can't desolate terrain or objectives. Only Helsmith units can. So that's part of why, like, bringing allied screens doesn't really work for us, because a screen that can't desolate goes against how I want to be playing. And we have screens that can desolate, so why not just take them instead? Also, Chaos doesn't really have any overpowered broken allies at the moment. You could argue that maybe the Helsmith one is going to be that, but we can't take that. So
you know the points are going to go up on that one. Like it's just like I think it's you look at it like was it 340 right now?
I think so. Yeah.
340 like a War Machine's 130, 140, and then right now the War the Demon Smith is 120. Yeah, so like it's an undercosted package.
Yeah.
I tell you, the first thing I went looking for, and unfortunately I got disappointed, was the Demon Smith. I'm like, no, Demon Smith, the Demon Prince. I'm like,
what? Yeah, but we can't.
Yeah, I'm like, I wonder if a Demon Prince would work, because like that would be a really nice support piece for like the Bulgor, especially even like a unit of 3, and not having to commit like Oryctar or like the Infernal Taurus. But no, there's no Demon Smith. I do Demon Prince, unfortunately for us, which makes sense lore wise, but I'm like, it's the
there's other demons we can take. They're a little inconsistent with that.
But then I thought the Nurglings had some play. I'm like, do I just buy more cohort for the same price? I'm like,
yeah, and like I think you do. Yeah,
I tried. Hopefully more coming out. I think there's some. You're right though. Like I thought about like Scarbrand. I thought about the Gargant. I'm like, do I just have the thing in my own faction? And is it worth the points trade-off, especially to your point where you're doing a lot of points? And I couldn't justify it.
Yeah.
So, look, I mean, I've got a lot of other burning questions. We talked about manifestations and stuff.
I guess on the Army of Renown, to quickly touch on that, because I know that's a popular one.
Yeah, go for it.
So specifically Oryctar's Army of Renown.
Yes.
It currently has a bit of a weird interaction with demonic points, in that it has no way to generate them, and it has no rule to get rid of them. But if you can generate them in some other way, like with Spear Cohort or with the new Despot, then you get to have your demonic point buffs from your War Scrolls while also using all of the Army of Renown abilities. And also you get to like keep your demonic points because there's no ability that gets rid of them. This feels weird. This feels unintended, but they haven't patched it out, so we're assuming it's fine.
Again, we're on the cusp of the battle scroll.
We are, yes.
What comes up, who knows? Let's not get too far, but yes.
The Army of Renown seems to be the primary choice for people who don't like bull centaurs. Because they can't bring bull centaurs, and you get some pretty decent abilities. You get recursion that we usually don't have. The combat buffs that it gives to your units can be pretty potent. It's like crit on 5s and stuff like that. It is a good option. It is a valid option to another way to build the army. I haven't been doing it myself because I quite like bull centaurs.
But like it plays a lot like Daughters of Cain, right? Where like round 2 you get the crit 2 hits, so all of a sudden you chuck them on swords, especially if you're getting the 61 attacks. You happen to get the and you know what? Maybe if I went that route, I drop the bull centaurs. I get an extra unit of cohort, so I've got 2 units of swords, 1 unit of spears. I have maybe a second war despot. Maybe I've got a second war machine, an extra rocket, and your power comes from your infantry. And it's not a bad thing, actually, especially if you're building into some of the combinations we have. And the fact that your war machines get the 6-up ward. So there's some cool stuff in there. But
you can give the rockets exploding hits as well, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's a good way to do it. Another thing I want to talk about, battle tactics.
All right, that was where I was going to end. That is exactly where I was going to end. I was just making sure. I think there's a lot of wish listing here. For example, like what do we need to see the Robo Bulls, like our Dominator engines, or even like Sentinels, for example. Like what do we need to do to see Sentinels better? I think majority of that book came out the gates really good.
Those like handful of dud units they're just kind of stuck in a race to the bottom situation where we're only excited to take them if they're very efficient for the cost. So like, if they get cheaper, then they get more reasonable to take, but kind of in a lame way where it's just because they're efficient, not because their abilities are cool. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, especially like Bulgors, for example, where it's like Bulgors are really good, Sentinels not really. Would I like if these points get ridiculous, then I clearly take Sentinels. But outside of that, like the point just needs better or alternative rules, and maybe that's where the soggy updates come in as opposed to like a points discount. I do think though that the Dominator engines can be solved with points. Sentinels, I think, is maybe more than a points issue. But if you start talking about a Dominator engine at, I keep saying 130, 140, because I think 110 like an Avatar is too cheap. I don't think we'll ever get to 110. But I think if it was 130, which is a similar price tag to a unit of cohort, a 2-up save, doesn't do as much damage. It's roughly around that 130-ish mark, 130, 140. 130, I'd be really comfortable. 130, I would take the War Scroll as it is. 140 right now with the soggy update, I think is fair.
They do have very low objective control, which is like their defined weakness that forces them to teamwork with people. So like I don't think that, like with pretty much all our other units, I don't think they're a good option to spam, even if they do get cheaper.
One or two max.
Yeah. I think like I if they're cheap enough, I could see one showing up in lists. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? Instead of having one unit of 10, a unit of 10 cohort, or maybe that unit of flamers that you had, that fills by one Revo ball. I think there's a play there. It could be a good backfield objective, or sitting on the flanks, or maybe going up the front early. I see a world, but at 170, I've just got too many good options at that price point.
Especially when Hobgrots are only 70.
Well, that's 2 units of Hobgrots, 1 extra rocket, 1 extra unit of X. Like all of a sudden, like anyway,
part of what having cheap units does is it makes our points pretty competitive.
Yeah, give me an extra rocket. All right, let's finish this off, mate, with battle tactics. The last thing.
So we are bad at them.
Not if your opponent.
How I've been approaching battle tactics is most of the time I have been scoring like 15 in my tactics, and that's it. I've scored the first step on one and 2 steps on the second. And I win the game anyway because I've managed to deny enough secondaries for my opponent, and also because the army is just very good at scoring primary. So our bar for battle tactics is pretty low. The rule of thumb I've been going with is that scouts is not for us, even if you have a lot of scout units.
Agreed.
Because like what scout doesn't want a lot of scouts units. What it wants is like 2 or 3 scout units that are lightning quick and are okay never fighting all game, which we don't really have. I also think attuned to the Ghyran isn't good for us. Attuned to Ghyran has the flaw when you're high drops, in that your opponent can see the line and choose to take first themselves, move their army to the middle, and then countercharge you, and now you can't score attuned to Ghyran anymore. And we are not like, we have Bull Centaurs to do a lot of damage very quickly, but they're not good at grinding. So if the opponent forces a grind in the middle before we can score step 1 on attuned, we're kind of out. We're just kind of out an entire battle tactic. I think any of the other 4 work. Just any combination of the other 4. I would avoid the pairing of Restless Energies with Wrathful Cycles, because both of them have the same step 1 of getting an opponent's objective. And if you're on a mission where that's difficult, like Life Roots or Grasp of Thorns, it gets like you just lose out on both tactics and go behind quite significantly. But any other pairing like Intercept Wrathful, master tuned, master and restless or so on, it can work well enough. You just pick whatever like fits well enough with your list and your game plan. And if you can score 15-ish, you should be good.
Yep, no, that's absolutely fair. That's so I have been playing around with a few different ones. What's the one that step 2 is you've got to be underdog. I always hate that one.
That is
yeah, like that one, I know it's popular and I know people think it's like it's a deterrent for an opponent to like W. But it's not my experience. People couldn't care less. So for me, like I hate having that dependency. I've been kind of confident and okay recently with intercept and recover because I've got such long range shooting that even if you, and often it's like an infantry unit that they want to hide away from me, and that's where the cannon really comes into its own. I found the rocket and the blunderbusses have been helpful to master the paths, for example. But then seize the path, the second step can be challenging. Third one can be even more challenging. So you're right in regards to like, that's where intercept will recover. Like it's kind of what I want to do. I want to shoot you and kill you anyway.
There's also like some opponents, Master of the Paths is just a common battle tactic across the game. And some armies can build themselves to be very difficult to score that against. We're one of them. I've been on intercept and wrathful cycles. Usually scoring like 10 in intercept and 5 in wrathful. We are quite good at intercept. We have but bull centaurs are especially units of 3 bull centaurs are very good at chasing down little foot heroes holding treasures. And because we often play all 5 rounds of the game, it gets very difficult for the opponent to not put their intercept targets into the fight. Like the cost of keeping their intercept targets away from the fight and hiding in the back corner means they're not using their abilities to stop you, which is often too much for the opponent to actually do. So they concede and they move the intercept target into threat range.
Like as I'm going through my Goonhammer app with battle tactics, like I rarely score a battle tactic in turn 1. Sometimes I do when the opponent's really aggressive, but it's like starting those battle tactics from turn 2, minimum turn 3, being comfortable not scoring early, but knowing that I'm keeping my key pieces, I'm chipping away, and I start to. And what I notice is that once I start scoring, the momentum really carries me through with this particular army. That scoring early is definitely not my strength.
And like we can have a lot of board presence, which makes us quite good at scoring primary. So we often don't fall behind on that. But yeah, this weakness in tactics is a big part of where denying opposing tactics becomes a very important thing you need to do, which does make the army harder to play because it's even more you need to think about on top of all the other stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where, you mentioned the War Despot as an example, but even Cohort are really good at holding objectives and, like a lot of denial and stuff. But look, man, we could talk forever. I think what's awesome is that you and I are both passionate demon forgers. We're going to be playing at the same tournament, so hopefully we can see who gets the better record. What's fascinating as well is that this is not a broken army. Like we are not above the 50% win rate threshold, which again, as we get more experience, and so that's a bad army. I think it's just a lot of tricks that we're trying to work out, and there's a lot of exploring that's happening right now.
We're missing a lot of We're missing a lot of the things that other armies sometimes use to get free wins as well.
Yeah. Let's not talk about that. But actually, let's end it off with one wish. I am under the belief, not a fact, that this is my tinfoil hat moment. That there'll be a second wave. Like I feel like this is there will be definitely 18 months from now. AOS 5 will come out with a second wave of Chaos Dwarves. What is it that you want to see in Chaos Dwarves? Are we going back to the past? Are we building out some future? Like what are we cooking with?
I I quite like Chaos Dwarves as they are now. Obviously, I hope that they getting more models is obviously always going to be nice, and there's a lot of room they can to expand the range.
What do you want?
What in specific? I guess the thing I say we're missing is like a proper solo operative unit, like some war machine that runs off on its own and beats up people.
Okay. I know you tried to tell me in Discord, you're like, we already have one of this. I want a hell cannon. I want like some really heavy I want heavy artillery. I want like spend 300 points on this heavy artillery, but it's a beautiful piece. Like it is more devastating than a city's cannon or an OBR catapult. Like give me something like a centerpiece war machine. I would love some light cav. I know Gitmob have the Hobgrot on dogs now, but give me some fast chaff idiots.
Yeah.
Give me my Fell Riders. Give me something cheap.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. There's a lot of space to explore with this faction, but any final comments that you want to make? I mean, obviously you're very active in Discord, so if you are a Helsmiths player and you're not on my Discord, you are missing out. It's a very, very active Discord, especially for Helsmiths, where never ends.
I think like overall on this army, like in terms of performance statistics and stuff like that, it's a little undercooked, but I'm not that bothered with that. I think this has been an incredible effort by the game designers. This army is exceptionally well made, and I'm very happy that it's now here, even if it may have been like against some of the advertising that people were seeing. We're not elite, unfortunately. But no, what we do have is very fun, and I'm very happy that it's here now.
Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed this discussion. I said to Mitch before we kicked off, I really want this to be about 90 minutes, and we're now at 2 hours and 15 minutes. So you got no, you got 45 minutes of bonus content, and that was planned. And there was plenty more we could have talked about, but I think we've given you a lot of meat when it comes to like really thinking through the experiences that, two players have had and what we've learned and what we've explored. And I think the great thing is that we're all learning this together, and we haven't had a 5-0 yet at a tournament. There's a couple of 4-1s. I'm curious to see who cracks the first 5-0 with Helsmiths. I don't know if it'll be me. Probably someone in France, someone somewhere else. But who knows? Maybe you and I will get the bunny run at CanCon January, and we'll just play like lots of easy players, and we bunny run it. But I think who knows?
No, the good matchup for Helsmiths is opponents who are worse than you.
Well, with a 47% win rate, there's not many of them. There's so many of them. Mate, you have been a pleasure to talk to. I hope people have enjoyed it. I will see you in about a month or two's time. Keep us chatting in the Discord, folks. And until next time, may your DPP be fruitful and your rockets actually hit. Often don't. All right, bye for now. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for hanging around until the end. I hope you enjoyed that video and you walked away with a few new ideas. Now, if you did, I would love it if you pressed like on the video, as well as left me a comment with your thoughts. The conversation will continue over on Discord, and the link is down below in the episode description. I also want to give a massive shout out to the AOS Coach patrons and YouTube members who are supporting the channel and the growth that you're seeing here. So cheers, you are all bloody legends. And until next time, don't roll a 1-1 on a spellcast.